coral life, and other and marine life. And then comes the species diversity is crucial because it ensures the ecosystem can function, ecosystem can function effectively. And if the more number of species contribute to the stability and the resilience of ecosystem, it will help in the it will help them in the adaptable changes such as climate shifts or disturbances, various fires and flood. So basically, what happens here is that if our species diversity gets affected, so what will happen here is that the various thousands of type of species like fish, coral will not be there in the next few years. But for, as I have said here, a sustainable development should be done so that the humans can coexist with all these type of species. So basically, a diversity in the species is a very much importance, and it helps them, it helps human in in a one way or other. Now comes to the genetic diversity. It is generally refers to the variety of the genes within any species or any population, whatsoever. And it also helps, it generally includes the variation that can exist in a DNA of an organism, whether that is an individual type or population or as it is whole or any species. So diversity in a genes is very much important. Actually, what will happen here is that diversity in the genes will lead to the lead to the adaptability, or I would say the evolution of the species, and it will help as a raw material for the natural selections to act upon. And one of the most important things of the genetic diversity is that it manifests as a difference. It manifests such as reproductive capability and even the behaviors. And it also, for example, the genetic difference between the different breeds of dogs, like you have seen here, that there are innumerable breeds of dogs, and there are various varieties of crops. And these all represent what they represent. They represent the genetic diversity. So if we don't the thing here is that if we don't preserve this genetic diversity, affect the humans, and also and what will happen here and there, sooner or later, the diversity between the crops will get uh, reduced. Now there are various components of the genetic diversity, like first is the allelic diversity. It means it is the variety of alleles, which is different versions of the gene present in a population. For example, in humans, you can see there are hemoglobin gene, which determine whether someone has a normal blood cells or condition like sickle and cell anemia, or whatever the reason. So those type of hemoglobin gene is correspond to the allelic diversity. As you can see that hemoglobin gene of any individual, which will determine whether it is a normal blood cell or if it is any health issue like sickle cell anemia or like that. Then comes the heterozygosity. It is the presence of the different alleles in a gene and at a gene locus within an individual. Higher the heterozygosity in a population often correlate with a better adaptability and the resilience. And another here is that uh, is the gene pool. It is the gene pool, like the total set of set of genes and alleles in a population. It is if we have a larger gene pool, we have a greater genetic diversity. Okay, and the last one correspond to the genetic distance. So basically, what will happen here is that in a same population, in a same species of the different population, the genetic difference often shaped by the geographical, ecological, and evolutionary factors. Like for example, the genes of an Indian is different from the genes for the people living in a Europe or US. So basically, these all are the component of the genetic diversity. And as you can see here, these are very much important for ourselves, for every human, or for every species. So basically, it is a critical component of a biodiversity, and any changes or effect of a genetic diversity will have a direct effect on the variety of the life on the earth. Actually, it is the genetic diversity, as you can see from whole discussion, it is very much important for the survival, adaptability, and health of all the living organism. So, uh, for example, I would say, in a population of trees, the genetic diversity might allow some individual to withstand drought while others survive pests. As you can see clearly in a forest, whenever there is a flood comes, some of the trees, left over, and some of the trees got uprooted. So it shows the diversity. For another example I would like to give you here is that whenever you use any wood for your own in your houses like wood, so what happens here is that sometimes pests are easily get into some of the woods, but some of the wood structure it does not. So what we are going to talk about that here is that those wood in which the pests are not able to penetrate have a much better genetic diversity. We can say here we can see here that it also shows the resilience to the diseases. Like, for example, in cheetahs, low genetic diversity makes the species more susceptible to disease, and it also reduces their reproductive success. And another importance of the genetic diversity is that it also, support the ecosystem stability. Like for example, pollinators like bees, they rely on the genetic diversity to adapt to the environmental stresses like plant diversity and the food. Okay, so basically these all type of things are very much effects on the genetic diversity. Another thing is that the evolution. The As you can see here, the man is evolved. So basically, genetic diversity is the raw material for evolution. Like without variation, without the evolution, the population cannot evolve in a response to the environmental pressures. So, like for example, antibiotic resistance in a bacteria evolves through genetic mutation that allows some bacteria to survive the treatment. So basically, I mean to say here is that the genetic diversity is a very much important factor in the uh, biodiversity. Now coming, as I said here, it also helps importance of the genetic diversity. It helps in the health and adaptability, long-term survival of the species, and adaptation to environmental changes, like allow population to adapt to changing environmental conditions such as climate change, new disease, or shift like that. Another instance, if some plant have a gene that are resilient to the drought, it will help in ability survive in a arid conditions. And as I said that it has a disease resistance, like a genetically diverse population will have a much better chance of containing individual resistance to diseases. For example, uh, monoculture population with a low genetic diversity are often wiped out by pests or diseases, whereas more genetically diverse wild uh, otherwise. So, importance of the genetic diversity is that it helps in the population survival. As I have said, that low genetic diversity will, inbreeding can occur, leading to the inbreeding depression, a reduction in fitness due to the expression of harmful recessive genes. Another is that genetically diverse are more likely to survive and thrive over the time. Another is the threats to genetic diversity. So, as I said, the genetic diversity is under threat from a variety of human activities and environmental changes like habitat loss and fragmentation. So what happens here is that when habitats are destroyed or fragmented, the population become isolated, leading to a smaller gene pool and reduces the genetic exchange between the population. So what happens over the area, their population become isolated. They are not able to inbreed between the population so that their diversity can reduce. So these the forest deforestation have a indirect effect. Like when forests are deforested, their habitats are destroyed, and which will eventually lead to the population become isolated. And what happened to this is that it will lead to smaller gene pools, to which we can they can genetically exchange. Now, over exploitation, like there in last more than 30 to 40 years back, there has been hunting of various species. But nowadays, government have done the strict rule regarding of the hunting. So basically, what happened if there, if you hunt uh, a certain individual, and the thing is that whenever they are over hunted, they cannot breed with the other population. They cannot genetically exchange. Like for example, overfishing. If we overfish in an area, then the number of fishes in that area gets reduced. And what will happen here is that it has a similar effect like deforestation. Like they cannot genetically exchange, and it will lead to a smaller gene pool, and the diversity of the genetic diversity will get eventually reduced. And harvesting of certain species like reduced population sizes often eliminate unique genetic traits. Another thing is that the climate change. So what happens here is that sometimes sometimes, for example, any species A, it lives in an area, and in that area the ambient temperature for that species is something like 25 to 30 degree. But due to global warming, all these deforestation, greenhouse houses emissions, the temperature is the variation in the temperature is so much that those species cannot withhold their places. Either they migrate from there or eventually die out. So what will happen here is that if they die out, the diversity of that area gets reduced and lead to the genetic diversity. So basically, the climate change, over exploitation, these all have a indirect and direct effect on the genetic diversity. Invasive species, like invasive species can outcome the native species, reducing their population and causes the variation in the genetics also. And another another thing is that the pollution, it can also harm the various species and disrupt their reproductive system and reducing the genetic diversity. As you can see here, right now in Delhi, there is so much pollution going on. So what happened here is that it is affecting the humans also, and if they are affecting the humans, it are also affecting various species, airborne species also. So what happened here is that it will disrupt their reproductive system, and depending upon depending upon their resistance or resilience, the what will happen here is that those airborne species may die or may move out from the Delhi. So what if that process continues for a longer time of period, the genetic diversity for a particular area will be disturbed. So the pollution has also you can say an effect which we generally overlook, but it is not. It is a very much important factor in reducing the genetic diversity in any area. Now, coming toward the importance of the ecosystem, as I have said, we have I have given about explained what are the various type of the ecosystem, biodiversity, and why we should preserve those diversity. So the importance is that it should preserve our genetic diversity, and which will eventually lead to the preservation of a species extinction and various ecosystem services. If we preserve our ecosystem, then it will ensure that the clean air we can get the clean air. Our water will be much less polluted, and soil will be much more fertile. And another thing is that it also helps in the climate regulation. Like for example, the it will mitigate the climate change through forest and ocean sinks and the carbon sinks. And as I said here, ecosystem protection has also a cultural and a religious value, because various communities hold the ecosystem, some ecosystem with a high regard, so they have a spiritual and a recreational benefit also. Now, what are the various ecosystem protection services? So basically, first is the provisioning services. It provides food, it provides fresh water, it provides additional plant. Because in the previous years, when the health was when the there are various herbs in the ecosystem which will help in the remedy of the various diseases, and most importantly, it provides the raw materials like timber which we use in our homes all over the places. So basically, it also it supplies fruits, nuts, and herb for the human consumption. So foremost ecosystem service is a provisioning service. It provides various fruits like that. Then comes another service which is the regulating service. Like the ecosystem maintains our air quality. It helps in the stability of the climate and the pollination of the crops. And the third service is that it supports various nutrient cycling, soil formation, photosynthesis. Like for example, mangrove stabilizes the coastline, and it it prevents various soil erosion and all that thing. And it also maintains our livelihood also. And another is the cultural. As I said here, it offers aesthetic enjoyment, spiritual fulfillment, and tourism opportunities. Like coral reef, it attract tourists and also support the local economies. But the thing here is that tourism should be, as I said, it should be in the ecological point of view. Now, what are the different threats to the ecosystem? Deforestation. One of the major threat is the deforestation. It is driven by the agriculture and logging and urbanization and all these things. So basically, uh, there are uh, the various type of urbanization are going on because due to the increase in the population, and agricultural pushes are given which will which is in a sort of a good thing, but for an agricultural layout there should be a certain type of specific requirements are being required. So based on that, forest has been removed. Another is the one of the most important thing which is going on right now is the industrial waste. What happened here is that there are certain guidelines for the government and all the agencies, but the problem is that people don't comply to that guideline. What happened here is that the industrial waste they directly dump to the aquatic system, and the plastics and the chemicals which comes from those. So basically, these all subsequently affect the aquatic system, and aquatic system means fishes, all those things here. So for example, oil spill. As you can see here, there are so much large inside oil rigs and oil mining going on in the ocean. Somehow, if there is any oil spill, it will devastate, it will affect the marine ecosystem. Why? Because it cannot allow the sunlight to penetrate in the system, and affecting all their systems. Now another is the climate change. Actually, this is the foremost. This is also one of the most important threat to this ecosystem, because what happened here is that whenever the climate is changed of any area, it alters the habitats, and it disrupts the species life cycle. For example, due to rise in the temperature, there is a shrinking of Arctic ice, and it will affect the polar bears over there, and they are struggle to survive due to rise in the temperature. Another thing is over exploitation, and over exploitation, like unsustainable hunting, fishing, and logging of the depleted sources. Like overfishing threatens the biodiversity. Invasive species, like for example zebra seals, and damage waterways in the North America. So now coming towards the impact. So definition, I know you all know the definition of the deforestation is the removal of the forest for agriculture and various urban development. It also lead to the habitat destruction and biodiversity losses, and it contribute to the soil erosion and various water cycle. Statistically, about 10 million hectares of the forest are lost annually, and it is a much more concern, because if we keep on going like this, then a time will come, we will not be able to hold on, we will not able to live on this earth, because if the deforestation going on a humongous level, the temperature will keep on increasing. And for example, we have an example of Amazon rainforest deforestation. It will lead to a global oxygen level and carbon sequestration. Now, there are various strategies to for the ecosystem protection. Like what? Uh, is essential to, first is the laws which a government can implement, and over all over the world there are various conferences that are going on, there are various the summits going on, which are working towards to maintain, to legislate a stricter environmental laws. And India has also done a wildlife protection act, and these environmental laws, what it will do here, it it will help in the protection of the of the ecosystem. Like for example, USA has the Endangered Species Act, and India has also a Wildlife Protection Act. Like it is a protection act which is being legislated in India to conserve and aimed to safeguard the India's biodiversity. And it has been it is known as actually Wildlife Protection Act 1972. It is the cornerstone of the wildlife conservation. And there is another act which is known as the Forest Conservation Act, often I think it is of 19 uh, I think 1990. If I may, if I'm right, it is of 19 uh, 1980 actually, yes. It is aimed to protect the deforestation and maintain the ecological balance. Then we have our EPA Act of 1986. It is an Environmental Protection Act which provides the comprehensive framework for environmental conservation like wildlife habitats, all those. So basically, and India has also established the protected areas, which I will discuss later on. Then we will have international agreements. There are various treaties like conventional or biological diversity, and very much famous Paris Agreement has been done to promote the global cooperation. It being the system, because what the thing is there, it is a global problem. As you can see, the ecosystem protection is a global problem. We have to work globally. If we work locally, it has an effect in for some time. But if you want to have for a permanent and a long lasting solution, then we have to work globally, because the thing is that the pollution is not a localized problem. It is a global problem. As you can see here right now, the stubble burning in Punjab leads to the problem in Delhi. So it is, you can see on a smaller scale, it is so much. So basically, it is of prime importance that we should all work in cohesion and address these climate changes. Now, coming to the land use planning, actually, there should be policies that it should prioritize the conservation. Like we should not be planning of urban cities without any logic, or without any accountability. There should be some policies, so that if any area which is rich in a habitat, which is rich in a biodiversity, should not be urbanized, and it should be regulated. Now, coming to the establishment of the protected areas, which I was talking about, that there are various areas has been designated by different governments and industries. Like for example, there is a Yellowstone National Park in US and the Serengeti National Park in the Tanzania, which are the examples of the wildlife protection parks. In India, we have also various national parks like Jim Corbett, Kaziranga, and Gir National Park, and these are protected areas. We cannot go in. There is no there is no free movement. We can go only with a proper approval like that. It Why it has been done? These has been done so that the ecosystem, or I would say the biodiversity of that area cannot be harmed. And there are now next is the establishment of the wildlife sanctuaries. Like these are the protected zone where species are allowed to thrive without human interference. Like it is this statement is very much important. The thing is that whenever a human try to intervene, either in a good or a bad way, it lead to the destruction of the habitat for that species. So basically, centuries has been developed all over the world and in India also, so that the various species can thrive, can live their life easily and without any human interference. And there are various marine reserves, because the aquatic systems are also getting depleted due to pollution. So there are various zones in seas and oceans has been dignified thing is that it will lead to a sustainable agriculture. Another is the eco-friendly forestry. Practices such as selective logging, replanting of the trees, and adhering to the certification like Forest Stewardship Council to ensure the forests are sustainably managed. Another is the renewables energy transition. This is one of the most important. And nowadays, of the lecture, I've told you about that in India, we are going to about 500 gigawatt and for this renewable energy. And it will lead. So, what happened here in the renewable energy is that over reliance on the fossil fuels will reduce. The thing is that what happened here is that we use fossil fuel based energy like thermal energy or other type of energy. There is a high amount of greenhouse gases emission from that. So what happened here is that to reduce that greenhouse gases emissions, we use solar. But there is another aspect. If we if we manufacture the solar panel, there is also a carbon content in that. But but we should make sure that the carbon content which is created due to the manufacturing of solar much less than the generation carbon content coming from the exhaust of the fossil fuel. So it will help in the lowering the population and also lead to the habitat also lead to the reduction in the habitat destruction. Another is the education and awareness. It is actually one of the main important thing is that we should educate ourselves. The thing is that it is a new term which we are going to sustainable development because most of the people don't know how to how to change their lifestyle. The thing is that we are using like for example like for example we should not be over consumption of anything because over consumption of anything will lead towards the non-sustainable development. And therefore there should be various public campaigns should be done so that it raises the awareness about the importance of the ecosystem like this faculty development program is one of this, and the consequences of the destruction of their destruction we should do through media events and outreach program like this FDP. Another is the environmental education, and the thing is that we should include these topics of energy conservation in a much broader in a much deeper form in our school curriculum in college, and so that the future generation are ecologically intelligent, and they should know what to do and what not to do. And another is the corporate training, like for example, how the corporate should work to encourage the businesses to adopt the sustainable practices and understand their impact on the ecosystem, all those things, and the technological innovations. Like for example, because we know we can talk all good about this, but there are activities which people do which are illegal, like poaching and deforestation. Now, what happened here is that the forests are very much away from our urbanized center or we can say from our monitoring center. So in order to have a good monitoring, we should use the technology like like drones. We can use the drones where the poaching or hunting, overhunting of any endangered species are going on, or if there are any forest cutting has been going on without any approval or like that. So those activities can be easily nowadays monitored by the use of drones. Another is the AI. Now, the artificial driven predictive model, we can develop our model based on the current situation and analyze the ecosystem trend. And also the thing with the artificial intelligence, it will base on the data and the model, it will give a broader view how we can conserve those how we can plan our conservation efforts also. Then come the renewable technology, like I have already talked about it, like solar panels, wind turbine. Also, it can be introduced, and it will help it will reduce our dependency on the ecologically damaging energy sources. And then comes the research innovation. So basically, the research should be done, and the research should be done in the biodiversity, how we can make our climate resilience and various ecological functions, so that the strategies, so the people can work and conserve and make the strategies for the conservation of these all things, because these are of very prime importance, and we have to conserve our ecosystem. Otherwise the future generation will be in a great trouble. Another topic of the research should be genetic conservation, how we can use the gene bank and captive breeding programs to preserve the species biodiversity. Like for example, if any species unfortunately is going towards its vulnerable, and we can use the gene bank for them, and you can do captive breeding like that also. So there are various steps which has been taken by the government of India. We should know that what our government is doing and what we can do in particular. So first is a legal policy framework. Wildlife Protection Act has been done. It has been protected it has been established to protect various parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and community reserves. And it also provides a legal protection for the endangered species, because there are various species which are on the verge of extinct. And if we don't protect, and if we don't give the legal protection, then it will be very difficult. And I know that the Forest Conservation Act, which I talked about, that it regulates the diversion of the forest land for non-forest purposes. How we can use the forest land for the non-forest purposes, and how we can emphasizes the afforestation and reforestation efforts. And the Environmental Protection Act 1986, it actually asserts an umbrella for various conservation of environmental policies, like addressing how we address the pollution control, how we can protect our ecosystem, and we can also restoration of those. So basically, another thing is protected area network, in which it comes various national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Like India have more than 100 national park and 500 sanctuaries, which has been established with a critical aim to safeguard the various habitats, like Jim Corbett National, Kaziranga National Park also. Then come the biosphere reserves. These are the areas, or we can say the reserve, which protects the biodiversity of any area, like Nilgiri, Gulf of Mannar, and all these are. And India has 75 Ramsar wetlands of international importance, like Chilka, Keludu National Park. And there are various national green programs also, like Green India Mission, like part of an NAPCC, which is a National Action Plan on the Climate Change. And it focuses, what it does focus, it focuses on the forest cover enhancement, how we can restore the ecosystem, and also it does have say about how important our biodiversity is to us. Then comes the National Afforestation Program. It increases the forest cover, and also, it helps in the restoration of any forests which are degraded by illegal activities. And it also involves the local communities through the joint forest management committees also. And then we have a very famous Namami Ganga program. It helps in the rejuvenating of aquatic system of Ganga River and its ecosystem, because we know that the Ganga River has a wide and large biodiversity. And if that Ganga River gets polluted, and its biodiversity cannot be conserved, then it will have a serious impact on us. And so it is of prime importance. We should rejuvenate the Ganga River, and for that, the government has started a program which we all know, the Namami Ganga program. It involves the pollution abatement, afforestation, and biodiversity conservation. Then we have a Project Tiger. It aims to provide protect the populations of the tiger and habitats and operates in 53 tiger reserves across the country. Then the conservation of elephants, because illegal activities has been done to, because elephant does provide a various type of thing which are very much important. So what happened here is that conservation of those elephant and their habitat are very much important. Then agroforestry policy of 2014, it promotes to enhance the tree cover and the wildlife livelihood. And then the international agreements and collaboration. So there is India has implemented a national biodiversity plan because it is in line with the convention of the biological diversity. India is also a member and committed member toward the ecosystem under the UNFCCC, which is the United Nations Framework Convention on the Climate Change. It also India has also an international agreement of the sustainable management of the wetland in India. And there are various national wetland programs like National Wetland Conservation Program, Mangrove and Coral Reservation Program, which has been especially in the regions like Sundarbans, and covered all those things. Mostly covered all those things which is been of prime importance. And it is, I would say here, it is not a uh, it is not a just a second. I would say it is just not the government can do. It is also our it is also our duty. So there, and as we are all from academia, and how as I in the last topic I have told about the research and the research area, how we can use the AI and all those things. So basically it's all our, as an academicians, we also have to be more vigilant and more proactive about the conservation of these things. So, with this, I end my lecture, and thank you for patience listening. If you have any question, you can ask me. Otherwise, I would say hello.
Yes, sir. Dear participants, if you have any queries, kindly post it in the chat box or else unmute yourself and you can interact with sir.
I think all of us understood, maybe.
Yes. Dear
Yes.
professors, if you have any queries, kindly post it in the chat box or else unmute yourself and you can interact with sir. Yes, sir. There is no questions, it seems. Manjari, can you wind up the session, ma?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, this is a very informative session. Thank you for your presentation and valuable presence, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to over here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Panjari, can you start the second session, ma'am? Sir has arrived.
Yes, ma'am. As we move towards the second session, I would like to warmly welcome Ms. G. Mahalakshmi, ma'am, Assistant Professor, Department of EEE, to introduce our distinguished chief guest. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, all. It's my privilege to introduce an individual whose achievements and contributions have made a significant impact in the field of electrical and electronics engineering. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. N.B. Muthuchelvan, Associate Professor in the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering at SSN College of Engineering. Dr. N.B. Muthuchelvan received his BE degree in the year 2000 and MBA degree in the year 2002 and completed his ME during the year 2004. He completed his PhD during the year 2013 in the field of power system engineering from Anna University, Chennai. His area of interest includes power system optimization, application of power electronic controllers in power system, renewable energy system. He has guided successfully 4 research scholars to obtain their PhD degree. He has published 25 research papers in the referred international journals and more than 30 research papers in the proceedings of international and national conferences. He is a recognized supervisor to guide PhD degree programs offered by Anna University, Chennai. He has received a research grant of rupees 40 lakhs for carrying out various research projects and consultancy work sponsored by SSN Trust, Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, the Tamil Nadu Biodiversity Conservation and Greening Project for Climate Change Response. He is a fellow of the Institution of Engineers India, senior member of IEEE, and life member of ISTE. He is also recognized chartered engineer from IEI. He is the recipient of professional award titled Innovative Technological Scientific Research and Dedicated Professor Award from Society of Engineers, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and Engineering Education Excellence Platinum Award from the Institution of Engineers, India. He has organized several international conferences, national conferences, and workshops, STTP courses, along with ISTE at SSN. He has delivered invited lectures, keynote addresses, and chaired technical sessions in various international conferences. He is also an active reviewer for various international journals published by Elsevier, Springer, Taylor, and Francis. He has also published 2 technical books with CRC Press. Dear all, it's truly an honor to have such an accomplished and inspiring individual with us today. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. N.B. Muthuchelvan, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for your introduction. Am I audible, ma'am, first?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine. So let me share my screen to the PPT. Is my PPT visible, ma'am, full screen mode?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good evening, all. So I'll be handling the second session. And myself, Dr. N.B. Muthuchelvan, I'm working in SSN for the past 20 years. And my area of research, as was introduced, is in the area of power systems, power electronics, and now I'm moving towards sustainable energy development. So today, I'll be dealing with the policy framework for global climate and action, sustainable development. Okay. Just a minute, let me see whether my art video is turned on, because it will take a lot of my bandwidth. So if it is turned on, I will just turn it off. My video is turned off, no problem. We move on. I think now the full screen is available, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. So you can contact me through my email ID. This is my email ID and this is my mobile number. So if you want to contact me regarding your PhD guidance or any other things, you can contact me through this modes of communication. So presentation outline. So this is how I'm going to present today. So first I'll be discussing about background of the problem, that is about climatic change, how it is going to affect. Then I'll be dealing with various facts that is lying behind the climatic change. Then we will see about various protocols that has been evolved to tackle this climatic change problem. Then we'll move on with climate vulnerability assessment, and then the policy frameworks that are available in India. And then we'll discuss about India's INDC. INDC stands for Intended National Determined Contribution. Okay, I'll tell you, I will explain about this later on. It's a very important thing towards sustainable achievement. Okay, so INDC is a very, very important thing. All our central government projects and state government projects, everything will be aligned with this INDC. Okay, it is Intended National Determined Contribution for obtaining the sustainable development for climatic changes. Then we will discuss about Indian scenario. Then we'll move on with national action plans. Okay. So background. So the climate change, it's the biggest humanitarian and economic challenge that the world is facing nowadays. So as you know, the climatic change, it is because it's happening very fast. The climatic change is very, very rapidly it is occurring. So for that reason, we have found that the effect of greenhouse gas is going to play a vital role. And to reduce this, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to shift towards the reduction in the greenhouse gas production. So first step in the transport, we are trying to move towards more greener energy. We are trying to move towards EVs, and then we are moving towards fuel cells, biocells, all these things. Okay, so all these things will lead to an economic challenge because we have to improve the infrastructure. Okay, and it's a very big humanitarian because the next generation or the future generation that's going to live in this world, we have to leave them. Okay, we can't push them into a world that is going to be completely filled with pollution and other things. Okay, so it has become a very biggest humanitarian economic challenge that the world has ever faced since its origin. Okay, second one, it's not a particular, it's not a this problem is not pretend it's a global problem. The human activity has contributed in increasing the concentration of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and increasing in the average global temperature. So if you see the increase in the carbon dioxide, it all happened after the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, where we went for completely machines and other things. Okay, that was a starting point. And the invention of your steam engine, all these things, okay, were subsequently developed. Okay, subsequently got developed, and we had this increase in the carbon dioxide. Okay, so this is in addition to the natural climate variability observed over comparable time periods. Okay, so there is always a naturally occurring variability also in the nature. Okay, even without contributing, even if we have not developed industries and other things, even if we are living like a very old historical time, even then there will be natural calamities. Recently, in the 1980 cyclone, Dhanushkori was completely eliminated. It is because of a natural calamity that was not due to a man-made problem. Okay, it is because of a naturally occurring thing. Okay, even in Japan also you can see that there is more amount of tsunamis happening. Okay, these are all naturally occurring. Okay, so if we are going, but the introduction of this GHG and other things, they are going to increase this natural occurring climate. Okay, it's going to be man-made also. Okay, so now we have to look into a policy that is trying to reduce this natural occurring climate. Okay, even in Japan also you can see that there is more amount of tsunamis happening. Okay, these are all naturally occurring. Okay, so if we are going, but the introduction of this GHG and other things, they are going to increase this natural occurring climate. Okay, so now we have to look into a policy that is trying to have sustainable development. Okay. So the various facts. So it is observed that the year 2015, okay, it was supposed to be the hottest year to the date. And this year 2015, we had a heavy rain in Chennai. I think you will be all remembering it. That that rain was not due to a cyclone. That rain happened because of a low pressure area that was occurring in a Bay of Bengal, and it was reluctant to move as a fungal cyclone that hit recently. Okay, it was staying there for a 3 to 4 days without moving, and hence we had a very huge rain during that time. So 2015 was the starting point. So you can see that that was the hottest year of the date, okay, ever recorded. Okay, so the sea levels are also rising faster than any time in the past 3,000 years. It has been observed that level of sea is also rising. Many uh,
Hello. Dear participants, there is a network issue on the resource person side. Kindly bear with us. Sir is joining within a minute.
Is it audible now?
Yes, sir, it is audible, sir, and screen is also visible, sir.
Yeah, when did I come out of the meeting? I don't know. Because I skipped to a lot of maybe I'll start.
Audible, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine. So I was discussing about this Copenhagen protocol. So Copenhagen is a place that's located in Denmark. It's the capital of Denmark. So here also we had a meeting. So it was regarding the creation of Green Climate Fund to assist the adaptation in developing countries. Okay. So first time developing countries like China, India, Brazil, Indonesia, which contributed significantly to greenhouse gas emissions, they had to take pledges for proposed emission. Okay. So this was implemented in Copenhagen, and COP19 in Warsaw called on parties to submit the intended national determined contribution INDCs. So the INDC submission becomes a mandatory only at this Copenhagen. This was proposed in Paris. This was supposed to be adopted in Paris Protocol, the Paris meeting. I think you should be aware of this Paris meeting, which happened very recent in Paris Convention. Okay, so all the countries which were part of United Nations, they were asked to submit this intended national determined contribution, which is called as INDC. So which will be focusing on the reduction of the carbon emissions. Okay, so this is an important bottom-up feature of the emerging agreement. So next one is Paris Convention. It was adopted by 196 parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. There are 196 countries that participated in this Paris Convention to adopt this sustainability development. Temperature increased to 1.5 degrees to achieve a balance between anthropogenic emissions by sources and removal by sinks of greenhouse gases in the second half of the century. So the anthropogenic emissions are the emissions that is caused due to the natural things. Okay, and these are to be removed. Okay, and we have to form a sink. Sink has to absorb all these emissions. Okay, so by having this balance between the source and the sink, the temperature increase has to be reduced to 1.5 degrees. So they are fixing the temperature increasing. Okay, and 1.5 degrees centigrade in second half of the century. Okay, so for 50 years, the temperature, there should not more than 1.5 degree rise in temperature. Okay, so it gives flexibility for the countries to voluntarily fix the national determined contribution. And the bottom-up approach is to be enforced at the national level. So each country was asked to have this INDC, the nationally determined contribution, and they have to implement it very systematically so that this constraint can be reached. Okay, so it established a framework for monitoring, reporting, and verifying countries' action. Has become a framework, okay, which will be used in monitoring, reporting, and verifying the various amount of emission that is being happening in the world. Okay, so it also urges the developed countries to aid and assist the developing countries by providing financial and technical assistance. So whenever we have some emissions to be reduced, it always comes with cost and technology that is to be involved in it. So this protocol, during this protocol, it was also informed that the developed countries has to help the developing countries so that there will be a uniform increase in the development of the sustainable goals. Okay, so the renewed focus on carbon sequestration, so which means the importance of afforestation, transforming the land from source to sink, and wetland restorations were the strategies that were asked to develop by the countries. Okay, so during this protocol meeting, so the countries were asked to go for huge afforestation. Okay, where we will be growing more amount of trees. So by growing the will sink. So sink will try to absorb the greenhouse gas emissions. So by having a very greater amount of huge amount of these things, trees and other things, will be able to have this greenhouse gas emission being absorbed by the trees. Okay, and the spread of renewable energy and move towards a low carbon world. So here the electrical energy comes into generating electrical power through renewable energy like solar and wind. Okay, that was given importance to generate electrical power rather than the normal thermal power plant and nuclear power plant. Okay, so climate vulnerability assessment. India accounts for 2.4% of the world surface area, but we support around 17.5% of the world population. So the density of population is much higher in India. Okay, so it has the largest population of global poor. Around 30% of the total population of India is still a poor. It's going to be a poor one. It's going to be having only poor people. Okay, so around 24% of the global population have no access to electricity. Still now, around 24% of the global population, they have no access to electricity. Okay, so 30% of the global population still rely safe drinking water. All these things are data that is taken from the United Nations and from the Indian surveys. Okay. And average annual energy consumption of India is around 0.6 tons of oil equivalent, which is in short is called as TOE per capita as compared to the global average of 1.88 TOE per capita. So this is our average annual energy consumption per capita, which means for per person is around 0.6 tons of oil equivalent, whereas for global average is going to be 1.88. So see the difference. Okay, so that's why we told that India is contributing very less to your GHG or your greenhouse gas emissions. We do not produce more amount of greenhouse gas emissions, but still we want to play to reduce the global problem. Okay, so this is the total. This is the biomass available in India. This is biomass atlas. You can see here these states. These states are going to have a very good amount of biomass that is being still used. Okay. Policy framework. Now we move on with policy framework. So these are some of the policy framework that is having Article 48A. These are framed by India. So here it emphasizes that the state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. So here, what the central government is stating is that the individual states that is going to be available in India, they have to protect and improve their environment to safeguard the forest and the wildlife of the country, because more amount of deforestation, the removal of sand and other things, they're going to have a drastic effect on the environment. So the central government has given full authority or full power, and it's a responsibility of the state government to safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. Okay, it has to be completely taken care, and the entire responsibility lies in the wildlife, lies in the state, lies in the hands of the state. Okay, so they have to report what are things that's going to happen. So only now we can see that what is the census of animals being taken, how much forest is being eroded. All this data are being done periodically, and they are trying to assess what will be the effect of it. Okay, even though we are doing all these precautions, we do have land because of the overutilization of the forest. Okay, so all these things also have to be reduced. Once we are not going to take care of all these things, what is going to happen is that nature will one day will be trying to do everything by its own. Okay, that's what will happen finally. Okay, so next one is National Environment Policy 2006. It is used to promote sustainable development along with respect for ecological constraints and imperative of social justice. So this national environment policy, they try to promote the sustainable development along with respect for ecological constraints. Ecological constraints that will happen in each and every field, like the seaside, similarly on the land side, all these things has to be taken into account. Okay, so the protocols, okay, they are all given by the United Nations to the company, to the countries, and these policy frameworks are the one that is being dissipated by the country to its regional area, like states. Okay, and moreover, India has something called as National Action Plan on Climate Change, NAPCC. There is around 8 national missions. Okay, and the outline priorities, and this outlines the priorities for mitigation and adaptation to combat climate change. Okay, so the National Action Plan on Climate Change, we are having 8 national missions, which we'll see later on. Okay, so they give priority to mitigation and adaptation to combat the climate change. So we are trying to mitigate as well as we are trying to adapt to the new technology. Both are happening. Okay. So now we will see about the mitigation strategy. Okay, that is given in our policy framework. So these are all some of the mitigation strategy: clean and efficient energy system, developing a climate resilient urban centers, waste to energy, solid waste management, clean India mission, and green transport network. Okay, so under clean and efficient energy system, so we have two things. One is the supply side and the demand side. Okay, so during the supply side means how the energy is being produced. So basically, if you see, the more amount of energy that is being used is going to be the electrical power. Okay, the electrical power is the one that's going to drive the entire country. Okay, once discovery of the electricity and transportation of electricity has played the vital role in development of the human culture. Okay, so the greater usage of renewable energy into the electrical power has become a very, very hot topic of research. Okay, because the electrical energy is consumed to a greater extent. So the usage of your solar, wind, biomass, hydropower, etc., okay, has now become a parcel of your energy power generation. Okay, so whenever these things are being introduced, like solar, wind, and other things, these are all highly intermittent. So you'll be having so much of power quality issues that's going to happen. Okay, but I'm not going into much into that. Okay, why we had previously we are sticking on with the coal is that even though the coal is not available in all the places, okay, this thermal power plant was able to supply power at very easily. Okay, it was able to provide a quality power, which means I was able to supply a sustainable power to the industries. But what happened is that the burning of coal that left a huge emission of the greenhouse gas emissions. So we had to move on to the other new technologies like solar and wind. But here the problem is going to be the intermittent nature of it. Okay. So we have so many good technologies now that is being used to overcome this solar and wind power, other things. Okay. Next one is demand side. So in demand side, it is going to be the efficient use of energy through various innovative policy measures under the ambit of Energy Conservation Act and National Smart Grid Mission. So under your demand side, you'll be having the usage of your smart grid, then the demand side management, where the industries will be asked to have a demand, you asked to connect to the grid based on the demand on the power grid, like that. Okay, so that will also help us to mitigate the usage of the electrical power. Okay, and next one is going to be developing climate resilient urban centers. So India has 2 missions in this. One is Smart City Mission, which is aimed at 100 cities, and Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, which is in short is called as AMRUT. It is designed for 500 cities. This Smart City Mission includes few cities like Indore, Bhubaneswar, Coimbatore, Pune. Okay, here what they mainly do is that in Smart City Mission, there are four main objectives. One is to provide adequate water supply. Second is to assure electricity supply to the people living there. Third one is to have a sanitation, including solid waste management. And fourth one is efficient urban mobility and public transport system. And this public transport system plays a vital role, okay, in climatic change, public transport system. See, when we do not have a public transport system, what we try to do, we try to use our own vehicles. It may be a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler. So the number of vehicles that's going to ply on the road, okay, that keeps on increasing. So more the vehicles that is going to ply, the more amount of fuels that we are going to burn, which will lead to production of GHG, or greenhouse gases. Okay, so now only because of the smart city mission, okay, government is intended to develop the more amount of public transport. That's the reason we are going for this metro and other things, which will be able to carry huge amount of population at a single stroke. So that will avoid to reduce the usage of private vehicles. Even if you see in Singapore, people will be fully using only the public transport system. Using private transport system is very costly at there. Okay, so in India, because the huge population, the government is not able to provide this basic public transport system in a greater way. So now, because of the smart city mission and Amrut missions, okay, we are trying to pour huge amount of money in developing this infrastructure. Okay, that's what when I started the slide, I told that to combat this climatic change, it's going to be a huge humanitarian need as well as economically, it is going to be very tough. Because whenever I'm going to change a technology, it will involve huge amount of cost. Okay, so that we have to keep in mind. Next one is waste to energy. So here converting the waste materials to energy. Okay, so by the whatever the waste that's going to happen in agriculture or the waste that is going to be taking place in their sewage, everything that can be converted into energy. Okay, similarly, solid waste management. Okay, solid waste management is a very challenging one for the developed cities, because in developed cities there are more amount of people living in a very less amount of area. So the amount of waste, solid waste that is being produced is going to be very huge. So now we are going for the segregation of the solid waste. So in Chennai, it has been implemented completely. Like you have to segregate the waste at the source level itself. You have to segregate it as the மக்கம் குப்பை மக்காத குப்பை பிரிச்சிய பண்ணணும் நம்ம. ஓகேங்களா? So it has become a very, very important one at the base level. If you are not going to follow this, then government will be penalizing the consumers. Okay, so it has now become a very great thing to have this solid waste management. All these things are mitigation strategy. Next is Clean India mission, like Swachh Bharat. Okay, all these things comes under your Clean India mission to keep the place clean and tidy. Next one is Green Transport Network. What does this Green Transport Network represents? It does not use any fossil fuels. It doesn't require any fuel for transporting. For example, in the olden days, you can see that many of the voyages were happening only through sea, and that too they were using this air, the wind pressure, and the what to say that tidal power to navigate the sea, to navigate the ships and coming to the port, coming to the places. Okay, so like that we are using the naturally occurring energy for transportation. Okay, so that is called as Green Transport Network. For this we have Sagarmala project and Bharatmala project. Okay, so Sagarmala project is the India's coastal regions and maritime economy. Okay, previous in the older days you can see that wood and other things, they were transported by simply putting in the river and will carry to the places where we want, we can take it off. Okay, but the problem is that there will be stealing. But nowadays, because of the growth of this technology, okay, we can put even a RFID tagger inside this, and we can monitor it where the things are being moved. Okay, like that we can have a technology now. Okay, but unfortunately we do not have the rivers now. Okay, so there should be a what to say a break-even point. Okay, so that we'll be able to use this green transport network. So when we use this green transport network for shifting our cargoes and other things, there will be a much reduction in your greenhouse gases. Okay, because you can see that in the roads during the night time, you can see huge number of long vehicles carrying the goods and other things. Okay, so they are the things that's going to consume the greenhouse gases to a greater extent. Okay, so that can be little bit avoided. Okay, similarly, the Bharatmala project. Okay, so they aim to produce highway infrastructure. So nowadays you can see that all the Indian railways that is being replaced by a electrical infrastructure. Okay, all the diesel engines and steam engines, they are now slowly being removed. Okay, the huge amount of area railway tracks are now being converted into electrification. Okay, so these are all highway infrastructure that's being done. Even the usage of six-way lane, which reduces the congestion in the transportation. Okay, that will also reduce the greenhouse gases, because once there's going to be a lot of congestion, the engine will be kept on for a longer period of time. More amount of fuel will be burned. To avoid all these things, okay, we are going for a huge amount of uh, bandwidth of roads, but it has to be taken into account that it should affect the nature also. Okay, that has to be taken into account. Okay. So manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles, there you can see there's an increase in manufacture of hybrid and electric vehicles. Even on the roadside, you can see many four-wheelers and two-wheelers running with green boards. Okay, which means they are going to be electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles. Similarly, we do have a policy on biofuel, how to use the biofuel for generation of the electrical power and for other things. Okay, and we are also moving towards planned afforestation under Green India Mission. So Green India Mission plans to go for afforestation, the increase in the forest. Then abatement of pollution. So which means is how to reduce the pollution. Okay, so continuous emission monitoring system is now compulsory for all the industries. So industries have to take care of this continuous emission monitoring system. Then they should be having a common effluent treatment, so that they'll be able to reuse the water, whatever they are going to use. And they are using for cement and other industries, there will be something called as fly ash utilization policy. The fly ash, there's